And welcome back. And it's going to be a fun hour to talk to Dr. Pat Flanagan, who has been on the program for quite a few years now, unfortunately. But he's back tonight. His website is PhiSciences.com. You can get there by clicking on his name. Pat, of course, among many, many things, invented the neurophone. He is a man for all seasons. He's an extraordinary life experiencer and has much to say about many things. Hello, Pat. Good to talk to you again.
Hey, Jeff. It's really good to talk to you again.
Thank you, my friend. It's been too long. I don't know how time slips away, but it does. Wasn't there a song about that? Something like that.
Yes. There are a couple that time.
Funny how time slips away. Something.
Yeah.
So, what we're looking at here since we last talked is really an extrapolation, an extension, a continuing unveiling of the most sophisticated mass scientific mind control and social engineering that the world has probably ever seen and may ever see ever, because I don't think it's going to last too much longer before it comes down on itself. But the media, you remember when it was said that Marshall McLuhan said the message is the media or the medium. Yeah. All right, well, it was TV. And just as some people were beginning to grasp the overwhelming power and influence and psychological, emotional, mental, spiritual subjugation of that media, TV, along comes the Internet, which I think geometrically takes the issue of mass control and influencing that much farther. And then we can, of course, stir into the pot, that cauldron of hell, cell phone radiation, electromagnetic fields which literally drown us. We're living in a fishbowl. 150 years ago, there was no EMF to speak of, except for a few lightning strikes and maybe something from space that dropped in now and then. But we are living in an environment that the human body simply cannot adapt to quickly enough. And the controllers are, 20, 30 years ahead, 40 years ahead in some disciplines, maybe 10 years ahead in others. But the idea of controlling the human mind now is so advanced and so exacting, I'm sure it would have shaken Edward L. Bernays in his grave if he were to be woken and told about it. I mean, it's just amazing what's going on. You see that as well as anybody.
Oh, yes. I've been observing it for years, and of course, I've studied it extensively, and they took one of my inventions and put it under secrecy for years, because some of the technologies I've developed can be used for mind control. They can also be used for the greatest good that the human being has ever seen. That's always a two-edged sword, when you develop.
The human being will never see in this case unless the planet is completely turned over and retooled to put good on the throne of evil. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, although I'd love for it to happen. I don't mean to sound negative, but it is what it is right now, and we are in the hands of people who do not particularly care about the value of human life, happiness, integrity, or anything else.
Well, that's true. And, it's Iblis fair seeming. All the TV shows and movies program people to think that the darkness wins, and that it's good to have no integrity. The people with no integrity, they're always, they're rich, they drive the best cars, and they end up, winning and beating the other people out. So greed is good. And then
greed wins. Greed is good, and that message goes in on several levels. And remember, it is also being enfolded and embedded into the subconscious through these technologies we've briefly mentioned. We'll get into that more as we continue.
Exactly. Yeah, the technology's reinforced, so we're getting it subconsciously and we're getting it consciously on multi-levels. The TV sets, scan rates, and are designed to put people into alpha states or below, and hypnotic trance, and then they've got the modulations coming from the Wi-Fi towers, and the modulations coming in through subliminal programming on the TV sets, and then Also through the power lines. There's plenty
now,
of...
let me say one thing, and then I would like you to please tell us that anecdote again. That is a classic, and it's crucial, and it was many years ago. Now, the idea that the human mind is an electronic organism, an electronic machine, is certainly not what most people envision. They think we're chemical first, what we eat is crucial and all that. It is crucial, but we're electrical first and chemical second. And they, being the scientists who are behind this effort to control people, have decoded much, if not all, of the valuable parts of the human emotion spectrum. The emotional spectrum is known in terms of hertz, megahertz, and other kinds of electromagnetic radiation and frequencies, and can be programmed. We know that people who go near secure military installations will all of a sudden become very nervous and frightened and want to leave. They want to get the hell out of there. And that's because the frequency for fear is being broadcast on a perimeter basis all around that facility. This is really older technology. It's not new. Now, what Pat just said is critical. We all know about cell phone towers. We know about the Gwen towers. We know about satellite applications of electromagnetic fields. We know about the HARP program to pump up into the ionosphere tremendous amounts of electronic energy and then use that to beam back down specific and selected frequencies which can affect small groups or large groups of peoples and populations. But there's another main platform, a main venue, that these kinds of frequencies are actually placed into the human mind at very close range, and it's called the power grid. And Pat was the first one that I ever knew to figure it out. So tell us that story about how those nice, friendly 60 hertz wires in your walls and your 60 hertz powered electronic devices in your home can have a dual purpose at the very least.
Well, John Lilly was a good friend of mine. We worked together for the Navy on dolphin projects, and John Lilly developed technologies for bypassing the mechanisms of the human brain that resist programming. And he developed, I'll tell it this way. My friend Adam Trombley was also a friend of John Lilly's, and he was in Hawaii looking at the power grid, and there are signals coming in the power grid that have some ultrasonic waveforms and certain wave shape, and so Adam was looking at this grid on the power line, and I was looking
he went
at
over
it.
He went over to Lilly's lab, didn't he? And there was a screen showing a waveform. Wasn't that the way it went?
Lilly walked into to Adam Trombley's house,
okay.
And Adam Trombley had the waveform up on the screen.
Oh, I see.
And John said to Adam, he said, "Oh, you know about my waveform?" And Adam said, "What are you talking about?" And then Adam said, "No, this is coming in on a power grid." And then John Lilly said, "Oh, so that's what they're doing with my waveform, the Lilly wave." And if you Google the Lilly wave, you'll find just one reference to it. But basically, it's a waveform that enables you to bypass the resistance of the human mind and program the brain. And you can transmit fear, you can transmit any emotion, any kind of information you want on the Lilly wave. And basically, Adam had discovered that they're using it through the power grid, and subsequently I've been all over the country, all over the world, and measured these things, and apparently there are black boxes in the power companies that produce the Lilly wave, and they're associated with, Homeland Security or whatever. And basically, these devices put ultrasonic waveform pulses riding on top of the regular 60 hertz wave. And they are mind control waves, and they're coming into everybody's house.
So the Lilly wave basically disarms the brain's ability to discern and decide. It just puts it in a neutral state where things just flow right in, much like the flicker of the old TV set will do. First time you watch TV, it takes about 2 minutes to get into that altered state. It's not beta, it's down in the alpha, almost theta range. You become really a zombie, and then after the first time, it's a matter of seconds. The second time you watch television, you're taken right into that state where things can pour right into your subconscious mind. So the Lilly wave was used first to disarm the mind, and then your theory is, and Lilly's, and I'm sure Adam's as well, is that the Lilly wave was then piggybacked with any kind of known decoded electronic signature that would cause a reaction in the human brain and consciousness. Fascinating.
Well, that is correct, and we know the signatures for every emotional state. The signature of fear, the signature of bliss, the signature of anger. All of these signatures are very easy to duplicate, recreate, and you can, disarm with the Lilly wave. It goes right in, and then you put whatever you want in there, plus whatever subliminal programming you want. You can create unrest, you can create civil unrest, you can create riots, you can do anything you want.
And the amazing part about it is it can also disarm the brain to the extent that the other platforms, cell towers, the Gwen towers, HARP, can also pump up and pump out any number of electronic frequencies that will then have a free ride and entree right into the human mind en masse. This is not just an isolated issue. It's an amazing thing to consider. We are under such control and influence that the average American, the sheep, will never figure it out. Wow. Hang on a second, Pat. We'll be right back in just a couple with Dr. Pat Flanagan, our friend of a long time, who's been really looking at this like few people do. Back in just a minute. Okay, I'm back talking to Pat Flanagan. Here's a little piece on the Lilly wave and why it is the wave of choice, the waveform of choice. The goal was to find an electric current waveform with which animals, that can be us, could be stimulated through implanted electrodes for several hours per day for several months, without causing irreversible changes in the threshold by the passage of current through the tissue. All right. Many waveforms, including 60 cycles per second sine wave current, could apparently be used safely for these limited schedules of stimulation. They could not be used for the intensive long-term schedule of chronic stimulation. Electric current passed through the brain can cause at least two distinct types of injury, thermal and electrolytic. The technical problem in chronic brain stimulation, and they're using electrodes in this particular study I'm reading about, is to stay above the excitatory threshold and below the injury threshold in the neuronal system under consideration. This result can be achieved most easily by the proper choice of waveforms and their time courses, and less easily by the choice of the range of repetition frequencies and trained durations. So they worked on this and came up with this final statement. The previous waveforms used in neurophysiology and in neurosurgery injured the neurons when unidirectional current passed through the brain. Dr. Lilly developed a new electrical waveform to balance the current, first in one direction and then, after a brief interval, in the other. Thus, ions moving in the neurons would first be pushed one way and then quickly the other, stimulating the neurons and leaving the ions in their former positions within the neurons. This new waveform was called a balanced bidirectional pulse pair, or the Lilly wave. Now, what we're talking about here is the Lilly wave has been introduced and basically piggybacked on 60 hertz AC, which is in every home, every office, every building. And the idea is that it transmits it. We do know from an electronic reading of any 60 hertz power box with a simple EMF meter, you can pick up electromagnetic fields 5, 6, 7 feet away. So people who are living in a box, in a hamster cage, which is a bedroom, an office, a living room, are surrounded with this stuff. And if they send the Lilly wave in, piggybacked on top of it with other, well, we won't call them control, but we can call them influential frequencies, we have the perfect way to directly affect masses of people in their homes, offices, and other structures where they hang out. Pat, go ahead.
Well, that is correct, and it's used in multi-levels. It's used in microwaves also. Microwave stimulation of the brain. The problem with stimulating the brain continuously with microwave or control frequencies is that you can cause damage. You don't want to damage people's brain unless that's your intent.
But they're doing a good enough job on their own.
Yeah, but basically the idea is to stimulate, transmit the information in, return the nerves to their former state, and then the brain doesn't resist it, because if the same signal keeps coming in over time, the body can develop a defense against it. The Lilly wave is a waveform that prevents you from building any kind of defense.
All right, very good. Now, what we have then in sum are a half a dozen primary venues to deliver electromagnetic frequencies to elicit some kind of a response in people. It's not to say that everyone's going to be driven out in the streets into a riot status tomorrow morning. But again, they have decoded successfully, electronically, most every basic emotion and thought process pattern in the human mind. Is that correct?
Oh, that is absolutely correct. And they can do it over the telephone. They can do it, when you're talking on the telephone, they can modify your speech waveform, put a Lilly wave on it, transmit that right back in, and put any emotion they want. Like if you're talking to someone, they can take your voice waveforms and they can put you into fear, put you into anger. You can call someone that you normally would have no anger with, and then after talking for a few minutes, suddenly you're screaming at each other, angry. And that's because your voice waveform has been modified with the Lilly waveform with an emotion added to it. And it can be done in multiple venues, not just the power line, and you can get people so fearful or so angry that they'll get up and do something about it. And so if you want people to riot so you can prove a point or whatever, you can do that.
Well, they can do this. They don't have to have hardwired phones either. This can be done through cellular microwave radiation that goes everywhere.
Absolutely. That's microwave transmitters. The Sky Fry, when I first came out with the neurophone and we discovered that you could transmit information into the brain bypassing the hearing channels completely, they developed a microwave modulation, and that's why my particular encoding technologies could be used with microwaves, and you can plant subliminal thoughts in people's heads, or you can amplify it to the point where they think they hear the voice of God, and you can say, this is the voice of God, and I want you to go do this, or I'll give you pain, and the one person giving you pain is right over there. Do something about it, and so forth and so on. So
people who complain of hearing voices, in some cases actually are hearing voices. By the way, the patents for voice-to-skull technology are almost 30 years old now, the originals. They were playing around with this in the late 70s, as I remember. So it's
I developed the neurophone in 1958, and it wasn't until 40 years later that we discovered how it works. A professor at the University of Virginia.
Really?
And they picked up on the neurophone right away. My patent was put under secrecy for years, and they tried to steal it. And I became close friends with Admiral Red Rayburn, who was DCI of the Central Intelligence Agency at the time. He was the inventor of the Polaris submarine, And Admiral Rayburn I became good friends, and we did favors for each other. He went on to NSA, National Security Agency, and offered me a job, and I refused the job, but we agreed to do favors. And so basically, I asked him to do a favor and get my patent out of secrecy, and he got my patent out of secrecy and asked me for a favor in return. But what he didn't tell me is that just because they got my patent out of secrecy didn't mean that they wouldn't harass me and try every way they could to keep me from doing anything with it. And my whole life, for the most part, was a nightmare from some of the things that were done to me from the time I was a child all the way through. And I didn't even remember most of them until a year ago. I'm 68 years old now. And so a lot of this stuff was buried subconsciously until about a year ago.
Well, all right. Hold on a sec, Pat. We'll pause and come back and think about all that and continue. Okay, I'm back with Dr. Pat Flanagan. All right, where are we in terms of controlling the public? How would you get, what percentage? How thorough? How pernicious is it right now? We have people buying into the political clubs that they belong to, the left-right, the phony left-right paradigm. They're a member of a church or a secret organization or whatever. As soon as people join up with something, that's an elitist, dominant ego thing to do, and they think that they're better than others, and the other people don't measure up, or I've got the truth and you don't. It's a way to divide and rule again. But how seriously competent and efficient is mass electronic mind control?
The entire public, for the most part, is under mind control from various drugs put in the water to drugs that they're taking to programming in school.
Well, SSRIs certainly have the potential, I'm not saying they do, to put the mind into an even more malleable state that it can be entered, penetrated, and manipulated.
Absolutely. No, there are so many drugs, and that's for the mass public, and then they have drugs and things that they can use on individuals that they've singled out that they wish to control more deeply. Various school programs looking for gifted children, looking for certain individuals that they might want to go deeper with. But the mass public itself, all of us, sit around and watch TV, and most of the programming comes through the TV set, and it's just very extensive. And then you've got, and this goes on, but you've got the fluoride in the water, and you've got the chemicals in Diet Cokes and, diet foods and so forth. It's very extensive. This goes very deep. And, when there was a program run by Andrea Puharich called the Star Child program, and they singled me out when I was in the third grade, said that I was a problem child, and that back then they didn't have ADHD, that I was hyper, and that they could help me. And they singled me out and put me in what's called the Star Child Project. And the Star Child Project is one in which they take children who are extremely intelligent, and they want to make sure that these children work for them and not for anyone else, and certainly don't work against them. And so they worked on me extensively as a child and when I was a teenager and throughout my life, and some of the extent of which I didn't even know until, like I say, I'm 68 years old, and it was about a year ago that I finally was able to break through the compartmentalization of the mind and find out what some of the things that were done to me. And this is being done all over. Children, are being put on ADHD drugs and so forth. And, it's very extensive. All the, various drugs that people are given for different problems are also part of that.
You've been observed, watched, utilized your entire life.
That is correct, yes. That's because when I was 11 years old, I developed a device called a atomic bomb guided missile detector, and I won Houston All City Science Fair with it, which included all grades up through college. And in my science fair project, I built this device that could detect atomic bombs and missile firings. Back then, they were doing a lot of above-ground testings, and also ICBM missile firings. And what I did is I made a little list of every thing that I detected worldwide and where it was located, what time it was, and so forth. And I won the science fair. That was on the weekend, and on Monday I was in 7th grade in the study hall, and the principal came on and said, "Will Patrick Flanagan come to my office immediately? The Pentagon is on the telephone." And I went to his office, and there was a 5-star general on the telephone wanting to know how I knew all their secrets. And I told him about my missile detector, and they sent a team of scientists from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. But I had their attention way before that even, but that really got their attention. And I discovered later on that not only did they want all of my inventions, they wanted me to work for them. When I was 17, I received an award with Admiral Red Rayburn and Ed Teller. And Murray Gell-Mann, we all got the same award together. It was called the Gold Plate Award from the American Academy of Achievement, and which was a wonderful event. And but basically, it was at that meeting that Admiral Red Rayburn, who was then director in charge of the CIA, offered me a scholarship. I could go anywhere in the world. They'd pay for it, give me a huge amount of money for my own use in addition to paying for all of my expenses. And all I had to do is work for them, he said, for 5 years after I graduated, and then they'd let me do what I wanted to do. And even back then, this is back in 1961, 1962. Even back then, I was told by some scientists and people that if I accepted the deal and I went to work for them for 5 years, that they'd never let me go, and that I'd never be able to do what I wanted to do. And by the time I was 17, I was making more money than my father was making, and didn't need money, and so I refused the scholarship offer, but Red Rayburn made me that deal of favors, and all I had to do when I wanted to reach him is I'd call the CIA main number and leave a message for him, and he'd call me back within 24 hours. And always when I'd call, they'd say, Red Rayburn, never heard of him. And I'd say, he was DCI of your own agency. What do you mean you never heard of him? The guy'd say, I still never heard of him. And I said, well, he told me I could leave a message here, and he'd call me back. And the guy said, well, you can leave a message for anyone you want here. I just won't guarantee you that they'll call you back. And I said, okay, and so forth and so on. And so the end result was that we developed quite a relationship. But what I didn't know until recently is that I had been subjected to hypnotic drugs and deep level pain drug hypnosis, and my mind had been compartmentalized, and certain things had been done that I didn't even know about. And I don't really want to go into the details of them. I don't hate these people for it. In fact, I've reached the point where I don't hate anyone for anything they've ever done to me, and it's all part of my life experience, and it's something that I needed to know. But I also understand how they work, and we're reaching a point right now where we're coming into a level where these people are actually losing their control.
Interesting. Let's pause right there and come back and pick that up. Losing their control, that's a very provocative statement. We'll be back with Dr. Pat right after this. Okay, I'm back with Pat. So Pat, as we look ahead, we kind of should look back a little bit. I remember talking to Adam Trombley. Boy, it had to be 1994. And I asked Adam, I said, how bad is the environment on the planet? How bad are we? And he said the point of no return came and went in the mid-1980s. He said it's too late. Nuclear energy, nuclear fuel waste, what we've done to degrade the environment and the biosphere. He said it ended in terms of a chance to rehabilitate it in the mid '80s. I don't know if you've talked to Adam lately or not, but
we talk all the time. He's a good friend.
What's he think now? How much time do we have before the whole thing really starts to noticeably implode?
Well, we need ET help. ET phone home. We don't know what's going to happen because I think, we're the 2012 scenario and all that. We are coming into the photon belt where we're going to be intensely cleansed by this energy coming off the center of the galaxy. And I do believe that it's changing all of our consciousness for the better. And I'm not afraid of it. It doesn't bother me. And Adam, we in addition to worrying about the planet and all these things, we have things that we have to worry about, in our own lives, our own consciousness, and so forth. And we've got to put all of it into perspective. None of us really know what's going to happen. But it reached the point of no return a long time ago. No matter what we do right now, we can't do anything to bring it back. So that there's either the Earth is going to cleanse itself, the Gaia, or not, or we're going to get extraterrestrial help. There's just no other way around it.
E.T., that's another issue. Some people announce that they have been appointed an ambassador from one star system or another to try to save the planet and wake people up. And you get a lot of charlatans working out there.
Sure.
What about E.T. and the control of this planet? Have you any ideas on what may or may not be going on?
Well, I've had my own visitations that are very clear. And also my son, when he was a child, he kept telling me that the movies, he'd run in and want to climb in bed with my wife and I because he'd said the movie stars are visiting him. Mm-hmm. And later on, he told me that the movie stars were ETs, that the only thing he could compare it with is when he was in movies and the actors on the screen had these great big heads, right? And so these visitations would occur in the middle of the night, and they always had these great big heads. And so he called them movie stars. And so I believe that the negative ETs are gone. I think that they're gone now, and I don't think that they're negatively affecting us anymore. That's my belief based on a number of things. But I believe that we are getting help now from, let's say, the positive races, because there are all kinds out there, and we can't dismiss it. I know it's absolutely true. I've had my own experiences, like I say, and but I'm no ambassador for the ETs, and I haven't been told to tell anybody anything that I'm consciously aware of.
Right. And, Pat, what are they telling us? What might they tell us to do that we obviously can't figure out on our own? I mean, look at Fukushima. We don't need nuclear power. It's absurd. No. If they don't intervene, much along the lines of the day the Earth stood still in 1951, where they sent an emissary here and he gave the planet an ultimatum. You either disarm and cut it out, or you're toast. And it seems to me that's the only kind of thing that this species is going to heed, if it'll heed anything. Yeah.
Well, the biggest answer to Fukushima is sulfur. Did you know that sulfur forms 146 compounds of 92 elements, and sulfates cannot stay in the body more than 12 hours? And if they dumped huge amounts of sulfur on Fukushima and into the ocean, it would sulfate all the radioactive elements except for iodine, and that these would then pass through the bodies of the fish and everything in sulfate form and would not stay in the body. And then we have to work on damages to the cells, and those can be done with antioxidants. I mean, there are ways to take care of our bodies and to neutralize the radioactivity. And no one's talking about sulfating the ions. And organic sulfur in our bodies is of supreme importance in the form, we call it MSM, methyl sulfonylmethane, which is a form of organic sulfur. But we can do things to help the environment ourselves. And one of the things I do believe the ETs are saying is that we have to want them to help. We have to ask for help. And not only that, but we have to help ourselves. People have to wake up from their sleep and start doing their best. And just like the 100th monkey, when a certain number of us wake up, then I think we're going to get the help we want and the help we need, and I think we're almost there.
Well, the idea is a good one, but you see stories like the one I ran yesterday, Liberia in Africa. Everybody's looking at Africa now to plunder it. Liberia has sold off almost 1/4 of the entire country to logging companies. They don't. They just sold it off. They don't care, and they're destroying the rainforest at record rates to put in genetically modified soybean crops, which are going to go around the world poisoning animals and humans in various forms. This whole GMO revolution is out of control, and there's no way to recall that. You can't, as you said earlier, you can't go backwards. Wherever we're going forward and out the other side, wherever that is.
Well, in the first place, I can take any genetically modified seed, I can treat it, and it'll go back to prehistoric times, return to its previous genetics, and all that genetic modification will be neutralized.
What do you think about the seed vault? What's the significance of that up in Norway?
Well, the significance of that is that they want to have the original seeds because they're creating these seeds that that can't replicate, and they want to control the food, control the seeds, so that everyone on the planet is under control by food, and so the seed vault's there just in case, because the idea if some catastrophic event does hit the earth, these seeds will be preserved. And but these guys are doing their best, and I don't, like I said, I don't hate them for it. There are answers to it. I'm not going out and telling people how to reverse genetic modifications. I'd be dead in very quickly if I were to do that, and I have no intention of doing that. I mean, I'm not. I might be strange, but I'm not crazy.
So you're saying for sure you do know of a technology to reverse runaway GMO? Absolutely.
Absolutely. It can be reversed. Yeah. And it's really quite simple.
Well,
and I can't tell about it. If I were to talk about it, that'd be it. I'd be gone. And a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, they don't care because they tell us what they're doing. These guys. And,
they don't care. They're in complete control, or virtually controlling everything to the extent that it doesn't matter what they tell us anymore, and they're just telling it to us right in our faces. And most of the people, of course, don't register anything.
Right. And they're proud of it. They want to brag. And, see, the thing about me is I see both sides of everything completely and totally. And I understand where they're going and so forth. But I also, I know how to reverse it. I know how to do all these things. But, and someday that we'll need that technology. And it could be sooner than later. So we bide our time and we see what happens. I'm kind of observing.
Well, I say let's roll it out sooner rather than later. I remember Morris Berman's amazing book. He's got a new book out, by the way. It was called Twilight of American Culture. And it had to be 10, 12 years ago or more that the book came out. And it was one of the most prescient, remarkable books I've ever seen in terms of what was coming. He said, we're losing our values so fast that they're going to have to be cloistered somehow and recorded and protected for such time that when a normalcy comes back over the masses, that these values will be again available to be remembered and taught to young people. So wow. It was quite an interesting book.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Pat, really nice to talk to you again, friend. You take care of yourself.
You too, Jeff, and you take care of yourself. It's always wonderful to talk with you. I enjoy it so much.
Thank you. Thanks, my friend. We'll do it again.
Okay, Jeff.
All righty. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, Dr. Patrick Flanagan. And Pat is a very interesting man. We'll pause and come back with hour 3 for you in just a couple.